Hi, I'm Suzanne Bakker, and today I want to talk to you about what are 3 things that you need to do when someone leaves your nonprofit organization. And as you can see, I'm going to be using a presentation to do this so that I can be sure that I'm staying on point and also to be sure that I use your time as effectively and efficiently as possible. But let me first tell you a little bit about who I am. Hi, I'm Suzanne, and it's my passion to help nonprofit leaders like you professionalize the operational back end of their nonprofit organizations so that you can focus more on your mission, the reason why your nonprofit organization was created, and worry a little bit less about all the other stuff. And I do that. I help you professionalize by sharing my experience working in different nonprofit organizations over the past 30 years, in different roles, in different organizations, working in different countries, in different contexts, on different topics. And what I learned through all of that is that all nonprofit organizations, whether they are big or small, whether they are based in the Netherlands or abroad, whether they are working on one topic or on the other, they face the same challenges when it comes to organization management, to finance management and admin, project design, fundraising, team management, HR and labor law. All these issues, all these are issues at the operational back end that are very similar across all nonprofit organizations that I have been working in and with, and that I'm still working with at this moment. And that is why I thought I wanted to share more widely my experiences and all the lessons that I learned by making mistakes, by seeing mistakes, but of course also by having success stories. And I want to share my experience here in this series on YouTube, but also I'm sharing my experience in weekly articles on my website. I'm sharing it in my weekly Facebook Live sessions on Facebook, in my monthly trainings, in my free Facebook group, and also I do have paid workshops and courses that I offer to nonprofit organizations from across the world. So that's basically what I do. And then you might wonder, what am I focusing on? So I'm focusing on all the fun stuff, all the things that nobody really likes, like finance and admin, organization management, HR and labor law, project design, fundraising, planning. All these things are things that I love and that I love helping you set up in a way that it takes less of your energy, and so that you can feel confident that everything is sorted out well at the back end, so that you can jump in and focus on your mission. Yeah, so those are the topics that I'm going to be talking about here in my video series on YouTube and in other channels where I'm sharing my experience, and of course also in my courses and workshops that I have. So that's what we're going to be working on. And before we dive into the topic of today, I just want to say that we are here together at my home office, my dinner table actually. And I just want to make it feel as if we are here really sitting together, talking to each other about an issue that maybe you're facing, a question that you might have, a topic that you find challenging, or where you're not really sure which direction to take. So I want us to be feeling as if we're talking together as colleagues and finding together the best way out for you, so that you can then worry less about all that stuff and move on and work on your mission, on the reason why your nonprofit was created and why it's working in this world to make things better tomorrow than they are today. Yeah, so please feel that we are together here in this at my dinner table, where you are always welcome to contact me with questions in my free Facebook group. You can find the link in the description of this video, below the video, but also feel free to reach out to me on Messenger or email, whatever is convenient to you. Just feel that we are here together as colleagues, and I'm here to help you find the best way that works for you in your situation, in your specific context, considering all the things that you need to consider to come to the best possible solution in that situation. So that's what I want to highlight here before we dive into the topic of today. So let's get going. Let's look at 3 to-dos when someone leaves your nonprofit. And the key goal is to ensure that there is a proper and smooth transition, both for the person leaving, the outgoing individual, and the people staying, the team, the remaining team, and the management, of course. Yeah, so that's the main goal that we should keep in mind always when somebody's leaving us for whatever reason, whether that's out of their own free will because they found another job, or maybe they want to go back to school, or maybe they simply want to do other things in their life, or whether it's because you cannot keep them on after their contract ends because the project that they're working on is finished, or maybe because you need to terminate their contract for whatever reason, even though they are really not willing to leave, right? There can be all sorts of different scenarios why somebody's leaving your organization. We're not going to go into the details of that right now in this video, but that's good to keep in mind. There are different scenarios, and in all of these scenarios, it is important that you try to have as proper and smooth as possible a transition, both for the person leaving and for the people staying behind, including maybe yourself as a manager dealing with this situation. And so what are 3 things that you need to do to take care of ensuring this proper and smooth transition? First of all, careful communication. Secondly, a checklist for practicalities so that you don't forget anything. And thirdly, an organized goodbye. And we're going to look into these 3 to-dos in a moment. And after that, we're going to look at your to-do list for right now so that you can be prepared to have careful communication, a checklist for all practicalities, and an organized goodbye. Never mind what the scenario is that somebody's leaving, you will be prepared if you follow the to-dos in a to-do list. Then you're ready for these 3 to-dos for when somebody leaves. So the first is careful communication, and there are 2 sides of that. The first side, of course, is the communication between you and the person who is leaving, and be sure that that is always respectful, careful, but also clear. Yeah, keep the relationship as much as possible intact. If it's difficult for you, try to think back to the moments when everything was good. Yeah, try to remember the time when you were enthusiastic about this person coming into your organization because you saw what they could bring, you saw their creativity, their ideas, their skills, their knowledge, their network, whatever it is, there was something that was good about them, which is why they joined the organization, why they were hired. So if you see that it's difficult to get out of a negative communication with them, try to think back to the moments when all was good and when you were happy and relaxed in their company and happy that they were there, and try to keep that feeling in your body and in your mind when you're doing communication with them, so that you can be sure that you step back from this, from maybe anger and dark thoughts and feeling of that somebody is a bad person. Try to remember the good times for having a better basis for neutral communication that is respectful, careful, but also clear. And clear is also important here. The person should not be in any doubt, and you also should not have any doubt about what is agreed between you and what that means for whom. Yeah, if you say you're working on a laptop that belongs to the organization and the laptop needs to be returned to the organization, that is very vague. You need to be clear about who needs to bring that laptop in when the person brings it in, that might need to be arranged so that another person can receive it and maybe check that everything is complete. Yeah, that the laptop is there with the charger, the mouse mat, the extra screen, whatever it is, the password, etc., etc. So be very clear about what it is that is agreed and what it means when it comes to returning equipment, when it comes to unused leave days, when it comes to maybe non-disclosure agreements, if there is a conflict and the two of you agree, the two sides of you agree that this isn't going to be shared widely. So be clear about what is agreed and make sure that it's clear on all sides. And as you can see in this picture, I picked this picture. It says we are not cones, and this is asking drivers in France to drive safely and slowly and not to drive into kids. You see that this is quite clear. Yeah, you see here that this driver is driving into the cones, and yeah, it's quite clear what the message is. It could be a very violent picture if there was a drawing of kids. Yeah, so it's done in a careful way by not depicting kids here, but nevertheless it's clear. So be sure that you keep clarity and care and respect in all your communications with the person, whether that person is leaving because they found something nice to go to, whether that person is leaving because you want to get rid of them, whether you are angry with them because they want to leave. All that doesn't matter. You need to be focusing on respectfulness, careful communication and clear communication. The other side of communication, of course, is when it comes to the team. And here also the keywords are respectful, careful, but also transparency. And you need to be as transparent as you can with the team about what is going on, why that person is leaving. Yeah, that's super important, because if you tell the team only part of the story and there are some gaps, the team is going to fill in the gaps. Yeah, they're going to fill in the gaps with assumptions, maybe based on gossip, and that might lead to the team becoming very nervous, maybe about the future of the organization. Maybe they think that you fired somebody because the organization is going under. Maybe they feel that if that person is leaving to another job, it's a person who can't be missed, and if they're not there, then the organization will go under. There could be a lot of unrest happening if you are not clear about what is happening and why it's happening. And of course you cannot share all the details with the whole team, yeah, because it's an HR issue and there's privacy involved, and there might be in some scenarios there might be a need for a non-disclosure agreement between you and the person leaving. So it might not be possible, and it certainly is never desirable, to make the team part of the whole thing that's going on, especially if it's not a nice thing. But it is important to make sure that the team has some basic facts to avoid unrest and uncertainty and gossip that is going to lead its own life and is going to create stories that might get out of control. So that's super important. It's also important to be transparent to your partners, organizations that you're working with, maybe organizations that are funding you, because here the same thing could happen. Yeah, it could lead, if a person is leaving, then that could lead to certain uncertainty in the partners that you have, because they might not know what is happening. Yeah, so they might have the impression that you're kicking out all the good people that they like to work with. And why is that? Don't you find the relationship with that partner important? There could be all sorts of assumptions that people can build stories on if they don't have sufficient facts from you you about what is going on and why that is going on. And again, of course, you cannot tell your partners and your funding partners all the things that are going on. That's not needed, that's not possible, that's not desirable, but you need to give them some facts about what is going on, and this is something that you need to also be sure to talk about with the person leaving, how you're going to deal with the team and with partners, especially funding partners, but also other consortium partners or collaboration partners or key stakeholders, how you're going to communicate to those parties and what is the main message there. And of course you need to agree on the approach for that together with the person leaving. Yeah, but keep in mind here that it's super important to be as transparent as you can, to avoid assumptions and gossip that can lead and breed uncertainty, mistrust, and unrest, both inside the organization and around it. And also keep in mind that how you are treating people who are leaving is also something that will impact how you as an organization are perceived. Now, if you have certain values in your vision, mission, value statement, and they are maybe integrity, transparency, things like that, then be sure that however you are treating people that are leaving you, or however people are perceiving that you're treating those people, will impact on whether your values have any credibility with those people again. Now, if you say that transparency is a big important value to you, and if you're not telling your partners, for example, that somebody's leaving, maybe the person who is managing the project with those partners, then of course they might wonder what kind of interpretation you have of the term transparency. Yeah, what does it mean for you if you're not transparently communicating about that? Yeah, so keep that in mind, that whatever you do and however that is perceived, yeah, so that's another layer, of course, of what you do and how that is perceived can impact on how credible people think you are in relation to your values, your mission, and your vision. Okay, so the second area of to-dos is the checklist, and we touched upon that already when we were looking at communication with the person leaving. And you need to be sure that all the key practical things are taken care of in your discussions with the person leaving, and that you have all this written out in an agreement between you and the person leaving. Yeah, usually that's a very simple agreement that is written down and signed by both sides, in which it is agreed what are the steps towards the end of the contract in terms of handing over tasks, contacts, accounts, passwords, maybe handing in equipment, maybe the office key, maybe other kinds of things that they had that belong in the office. Also the calculation of unused leave days, maybe remaining expense claims or advances that were paid out, or loans. It is also, of course, usual to agree to write a reference letter and to agree on what should be included in the reference letter and how it should be formulated, etc., etc. It depends on the situation, depends on the arrangements that you have with your staff in general and with this person in particular. But be sure to have a checklist that will be on your to-do list at the end of this video. Be sure to have a checklist that you can simply walk through with the person leaving in your closing conversation, and that you agree for all the boxes that you're ticking off what is going to happen, who's going to do it, and when they're going to do that, and how we can agree that the thing is done. Now, once they have handed in their equipment and your office manager has signed for receiving the laptop in good order, including the the mouse, the extra camera, the extra microphone, the password, etc., etc., then that part is done, right? So be clear about that and have that in your checklist and go through that with the person leaving. And then the final to do is, of course, organizing a good goodbye. Yeah, organize some kind of ceremony. I put that between brackets because that's it doesn't need to be a ceremony, but it should be something like a party or something festive to say thanks to the person, to look back on the good times when the person was there, and that could be as a starting point for a new kind of relationship between the organization and the team and that person. Then maybe a person is leaving to another job, but maybe they would still like to be involved in your organization's work, maybe as a volunteer. Maybe they would like to receive the newsletter. Maybe they would like to become a private individual donor or supporter of your organization. Maybe they would like to later on involve their new employer in supporting your organization. Yeah, there could be all sorts of different developments in the relationship after a person is leaving, and make sure that you have a ceremony or something to symbolize the closing of one chapter and the start of another. And of course, in a scenario where either the person who is leaving is very angry with you, or you are angry with the person who is leaving or whom you had to terminate, it might not be feasible that you yourself would organize a very nice and warm party for that person, right? Or maybe that person wouldn't come if they knew that you would be organizing it or that you would be there. In that case, make sure that somebody else on the team is organizing the goodbye for the team and for the person leaving. And I would like to emphasize here for the team, because if a person is leaving, even if it is a little bit under a cloud, it is still important for the people that are remaining behind to say a proper goodbye and to celebrate the good things, to look back on the good times and to close this chapter and to maybe have space to move on to a new chapter or leave the chapter closed. That's up to the team and the team members, of course, but it is important for the team to be able to say goodbye, even if the person leaving and you could not be there together. Then just step away, make sure that the team can have their closure with the person leaving, make sure that the person leaving, who is until they are out of your organization, you are still their employer, you still have a duty to care for them. Yeah, so it's also a matter of caring for the person leaving to make sure that they can also close this chapter with their soon-to-be ex-colleagues. Yeah, so that's super important for the team who is staying and also for the person who's leaving. And if you cannot be there for whatever reason of conflict there may be, then make sure that this is still happening. So now what to do to make sure that you can do careful communication, have a good checklist and set up that proper goodbye, that organized goodbye. I think the first step is to check all your staff files and make sure they're up to date so that you have all the information about unused leave days, about equipment and other arrangements that you have agreed with the people on your team before they leave. Also, of course, very important, in case you want to terminate a contract, then you need to have proper files that can show what the issue is, why you want to terminate their contract. Yeah? So there needs to be document proof of the issues that you're claiming as a reason for termination. Yeah, so that's also why it's important to have your staff files in order and up to date. So first of all, do that. Then create a checklist for all the things that you need to take care of at the end of a contract, whatever the scenario is. Then it could be part of your staff file staff files, and it could be a standard operating procedure describing what to do in case somebody resigns, what to do in case you cannot renew a temporary contract, and what to do in case you need to terminate a contract with somebody. So you can have different standard operating procedures describing exactly the steps and having a checklist where you can tick off all the arrangements that you need to take care of at the end of a contract. And then the final to do for you is to develop scenarios for those different situations, and as I said, to create different standard operating procedures for the steps that you need to take in those different scenarios. Yes, I repeated myself here. I'm sorry about that. But that's basically what I want you to do. Check your staff files, make sure that they're up to date and keep them up to date. Create a checklist for things that you need to arrange at contract's end that can be inspired by your staff file. Create a standard operating procedure for that, for when you're going to sit down with a person who's leaving to go through those items on a checklist and agree on how they're going to be handled with as input for that contract that you're going to make, this agreement that you're going to make at the end of your contract, and then develops standard operating procedures for the different scenarios that could be in place when somebody is going to leave your team out of their own free will, out of necessity, because you don't have the money to renew or the project to renew their contract, or maybe out of necessity because you need to terminate their contract. So that's what I wanted to tell you about 3 things that you need to do when somebody's leaving your team, and I hope this was useful to you. Yeah, that was it. And the final thing I want to say to you is I am here for you. So if you have any questions about this video or about any other issue to do with management or operations of your nonprofit, then please be warmly invited to join my Facebook group and ask me anything there. You can find the link here on the screen and also below in the description of this video. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to seeing you there and to continuing the conversation there. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next video, when we're going to be talking about another HR management, finance management, organization management topic for nonprofits. See you there. Bye for now.